AI is by far the biggest leverage you can use in terms of learning anything, and everyone is doing it wrong. Hey, I'm Marius. I've taught over 100,000 people online, including Fortune 500 employees, on how to use AI, and the process I'm gonna give you is something I perfected over the past 4 years. It's just 5 steps. Step 1. Assess your current understanding. So the number one mistake people make is they tend to go off on YouTube and search for clips regarding the thing that they want to learn and just binge watch all of them. Now the problem here is that most of the content you have there you already know, because once you watch one of them, most clips are quite generic to the point where 80% of the information is repeated in the same way or in different ways throughout 10 different videos. But if you want to optimize your learning, what you need is not to be repeated the same thing over and over again. You need to tackle the same problems maybe from different angles, but then you have to expand the problems and the shape of the problems you're tackling. And the best way to do that is, rather than just going and consuming content, to have an AI assess you. And assess you not just through a test, it can be anything, it can be an oral exam almost. So you have to explain something to the AI, then it questions you on things it feels like you're not good enough in, or maybe you've overstepped and overlooked, and then you just go and explain that thing yourself. And in this process of the interview, you will better understand and the AI will see what are the gaps that you might not be able to see, since, again, the hardest thing in learning is first of all not knowing what you don't know, and pretty much this is what you can use AI for. It's one of the biggest unlocks, because once you realize what are the 20% of the stuff that you don't know that holds you away from achieving or understanding one concept, you can just go and tackle that and then go to the next thing. Step number 2 is to organize the context. Millions of people use AI without having the smallest clue about how it works. And that leads them to wishful thinking that everything they talk about and all the context from all the previous chats will be considered in the future ones, which is wrong. The context you keep track, or the AI keeps track of throughout various chats, is a very much way to distill to be considered context. It's a faint version of what context is in general. And so what you want to do is you want to organize the context way better, because then you can just reuse it in any new chat. The best way to keep the context probably would be through skill.md files, where you'd have a different hierarchy for how important are different skills, and then have a meta skill which guides the AI on how to select one skill over the other, and then every single individual skill would contain some piece of information about one concept you're aware of, one concept you know more of or less, etc. And in this way, whenever you start a new conversation, just let your agent go through all of those files and kind of understand what is your current level within a specific field. Step number 3. Rather than just consuming new content that the AI gives you, or even YouTube videos, or any form of content, try to discover the things yourself. So the best way to learn is to create, and creating knowledge is one of the valid ways. And the way you do it is to, rather than just read about something new, try to discover that thing yourself through the current knowledge you have. And this would be done in a classroom with the help of a teacher, where he wouldn't just tell you the new subject, or he wouldn't just teach you the material. Rather, he would take whatever you already know and think of what are the steps, the mental steps you have to think through to derive the same conclusions, to reach the same conclusions. And what AI allows you to do is exactly that. You could just let it know what you already know with the context that it has about you, and then ask it to help you discover new things, whether you already know the direction where you want to head towards, or maybe you just want to explore new stuff. And then, through questioning, without explaining to you absolutely anything, you would derive the new ideas yourself. This is basically triangulating knowledge, using 3 or more different sets of ideas, and basically it entails that you use your current knowledge to figure out new knowledge, and it's one of the best ways to learn. Step 4 is to go and design different projects which have real limitations. And by real limitations, I mean you need a way to test whether what you're building is true or false. the idea of why we learn things is to be able to predict the environment, predict it, and take actions and know the consequences of our actions to the point where we can even manipulate our environment. But overall, the idea is learning is a compression algorithm. We compress all the world's knowledge into a smaller, distilled model within our heads, and then we use that to live, basically. And in order to go through the whole process, you need to constantly iterate on something specific, on something fixed. You need a clear dataset to compare with. And nature, or in general, projects with specific limitations and clear outcomes are that thing I'm talking about, where you can compare the results fairly easily and you can have the feedback loop be very clear. What you don't want is subjectivity. And now the faster you go through all of those feedback loops, the faster you go through all of the iterations, the faster you learn. Now, how does it work when it comes down to creating these projects? And why you're allowed to consume content in this case? You see, you cannot purely derive all of your knowledge, or at least it's really hard and not efficient all the time. There are places and moments when you want to do what we said in step number 3, but then overall, what a project has is a clear outcome to compare with, and then the process would be something more like you have a representation of how the project should be built in your head, you try it out, it doesn't work the first time, and it means that you have to change something within your own internal model, and that means that you have to go either out there and figure out what is it the thing that you don't know. And usually what happens with projects is that the things you don't know get revealed, and now you know what you don't know, so you can go out and learn about it. Step number 5 is to write everything you're learning and just document the process, because this will be your own log. And having your own log is very important and very useful. You can just give it to the AI and it will figure out places where you might be overlooking. You would be creating knowledge and reinforcing what we set out in step number 4, because it's one form of a project. And then finally, it's just nice to look back on your own progress.